What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we're waiting for OTAs. Rookie minicamp is behind us, but there is still plenty of news. Their Ireland game was announced today. We're diving into the Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota Vikings matchup. Meanwhile, plenty of people have plenty of things to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers, what they have done wrong in the last couple of weeks. We'll dive into that. And then there's a corner on the free agent market that has caught many people's eye over the last couple of weeks that has revealed his signing timeline, and it fits perfectly with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll dive into that. Plus more here on Overreaction Tuesday. It's a bit of a rainy one here in good old Manhattan, New York City, but it's not bad. It's a quick turnaround for me out here, but I'm excited to see the city. How's Pittsburgh? How you feeling, my friend?
It is a dreary one over in the Berg today, man. I was out at my dad's earlier, out east of the city, and it was just pouring down rain the entire morning. So yeah. I think we're right there with you, that gray, drizzly weather. But besides that, man, I'm good. I am doing real good. I'm happy to be chatting with you in New York City. You're coming to us from today. That's Big Apple, Noah. What a trick.
That is that is true. Quick in and out. Flew in this morning. Got a meeting tomorrow. It was supposed to be today. The rescheduled last minute to tomorrow. So I'll be out of here tomorrow. My thought was it was perfectly planned out. Okay. I don't know about you, but to me, it's if you leave me somewhere long enough, I will spend money on stupid things. This is just this is just facts of life. And I planned it perfectly to fly into New York City, have my meeting, got right off the plane, was planning to go right to the meeting, ready to go, have the meeting, then have, the afternoon, jump on here. Won't really have a bunch of time to go do crazy stuff. Tomorrow, get a bagel, coffee, head to the airport. We're good to go. I land. I get the text message that says, hey, we're going to move it to tomorrow morning, and then you could just get on your flight. And I go in. That's a full 24 hours that I have in New York City to do absolutely nothing. And as we did, we spent money. We spent stupid money on stupid things, which is, part of the gig. But I will say my wife talked me into it. So I blame her. I texted her all day and said, I needed a new backpack. I said, yo, dude, need a new backpack, but this thing's like, $200-$300. I don't know if I want to buy a backpack for $200-$300. This is ridiculous. She texted me back 4 times. You work very hard. I said, that doesn't mean I have money to just be tossing around like that. What are we doing here? I blame her. It is what it is.
Good looks, Dillian. Good looks. I love that. You do work hard. You deserve something nice every now and then. Come on.
Yep, a good old work backpack right on the tax write-off on that one. That's my present to myself. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. The news came out this morning. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be traveling to Dublin, Ireland this September to take on the Minnesota Vikings in week 4. A team that, look, I'm not going to lie, bit of a underwhelming game for the return to international play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bit of a scary game if you're a fan that's considering going to Dublin to attend Cork Stadium, which I've heard is fantastic. I've heard Dublin's beautiful. I'm super excited for it. But if you're going, got to be a little worried that the Minnesota Vikings are, if J.J. McCarthy works out, a Super Bowl contender, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that, well, maybe Mason Rudolph is their starting quarterback. We have no idea what's going to happen. It's the right move. The NFL isn't going to go, hammer all their best games internationally because you're going to Ireland. Like, that's the attraction. It is not the, oh man, I can't wait to see this phenomenal football game. No, you're not going to schedule a top tier football game for 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. Instead, you're going to go with the underwhelming one. Steelers, Vikings could be a showdown of the Aaron Rodgers signed with Pittsburgh, wanted to sign in Minnesota. revenge game, a little bit of a show you what you could have had type situation. Maybe it leans in the Steelers' favor. Yeah, your thoughts on the announcement? A game that, again, we've talked Ireland, but until the last couple of days, the Vikings were not the team to watch.
Yeah, a little. I don't want to say let down, but I think I might have had higher expectations that this would be a more premier sort of matchup, but I think this is actually going to be a little bit more exciting than the initial feelings are. Yeah, I think this is not the best case scenario, maybe. I was kind of hoping for just like some very dramatic Steelers versus Packers sort of situation with some Aaron Rodgers drama thrown in there or something like that. But I know NFL scheduling is way more complex than just sort of the wants and wishes of Jacob. So I accept that. But yeah, it's I think it'll be a decent matchup because I do think the Vikings pose a pretty serious Super Bowl threat if things pan out in the way that they're hoping. So I think it could be a pretty good game. I think it's nice that, we're a decade later playing an international game against the Vikings again. I kind of like that full circle moment we got going on.
Yeah, 2013 was the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers played international. They played in London in week 4, played the Vikings, lost that game, which is, not great, but nobody wants to remember that side of things. We're just going to remember that it was there. Look, at anybody who's going, fantastic. If you are going to Dublin, I want to make it known now that I'll be in Dublin, so let's, AST hook up somewhere. Let's figure it out. Get some. I've heard there's beer there. I've heard there's a couple of brews, so let's get a couple of brews. Have a good time. Steelers Dublin. I know that we've got some questions in the chat, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. Let's dive into the other news and notes that came over the last 24 hours or so. This is an interesting one. The Pittsburgh Steelers only made one move, well, 2 moves, I guess, if you count Brandon Eccles, 2 moves at corner in free agency this year, a position that I think everybody had pretty high on their list. It was believed maybe Dante Jackson was going to be that guy. He wasn't that guy. They signed Darius Slay. They keep Beanie Bishop around. They draft Dante Kent maybe to compete with him as a 7th-round pick, but there's not a lot of big superstar potential at the nickel position, the slot corner for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Many have mentioned the name Asante Samuel Jr. as a potential option for them this season. Now, everybody asked at the same time, why hasn't he signed? What's going on with Samuel Jr.? Why isn't he, a target? Why does nobody want Asante Samuel at this point in the offseason? The answer has been revealed. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler announced that Samuel underwent neck surgery on a very long, lingering issue that has started in his neck. He said it was something that he was almost born with and went down into his shoulder. He was unable to perform at his full capacity last season. He underwent neck surgery in April. He is going in for a checkup in July. At that point, after the checkup, is when he plans to begin looking to sign with a team to make sure he is 100% healthy. I'll say that works out perfectly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are a team that right now are not looking to make another splash on defense. They've had their defense. Their defense is ready. But just like the wide receiver position, I look at it and go, you are going to test the waters with the guys you have in-house. You are going to give Beanie Bishop an opportunity. You are going to give Brandon Eccles an opportunity and Dante Kent an opportunity and see what you have in Corey Trice in year 3 and, hope that Darius Slay is a superstar right off the bat. I'm obviously 34 years old. He's been one, but is he going to continue? Joey Porter Jr. takes another step forward. All of these questions, you want them answered before you go out and get another corner, and July is perfect for that. You now have minicamp and OTAs. You could evaluate and see what you could bring in or what you have on the field now, and then assess the position for 2 months. You've 2 full months to say, all right, sounds good. And if he's getting checked, hopefully it's late July, you can make a move maybe the beginning of training camp, maybe right before training camp. But this is a guy that's clearly injured, is most likely going to get a 1-year prove-it deal, which works out very well for the Steelers. And if they want a 1-year prove-it deal guy, much like they did with Cam Sutton last year, then you have to, or then it works out perfect because you're going to see what you have in the guys on the field. I think Asante Samuel Jr., because of this, becomes an actual option for the Steelers. I'm not saying that as a report. It's purely like this timeline seems to work for them, but it works in the Steelers' favor if they are considering a corner at any point during the rest of this offseason. Your thoughts on that?
It seems like a lovely potential fit. I mean, whenever he was coming out and entering the NFL, he seemed like a perfect fit for the Steelers at the time. You know, with that NFL pedigree, there was a need at safety whenever he was coming out of college. So I think it was surprising that he got passed over and ultimately landed with the Chargers anyways. So I think that there has always been an interest from the Steelers in Asante Samuel Jr. So I think this is just a continuation of some sorts of that interest. And yeah, the timeline that you're bringing up is really, really what I find so interesting about all of this, is because you don't have to know right this second. Okay, we don't have to say Asante Samuel, this person who is recovering from what sounds like a pretty intense traumatic injury that he was healing from, and especially for a football player, the neck area is so sensitive. Like, you know, hoping that he is okay first and foremost, but for him to not have to know right now, and for the Steelers not have to know right this second that they would have to commit to him as being the number 2 cornerback, or, you know, number 3, whatever the situation is, I think that is really, really attractive right now. Because if he's just kind of, maybe it's a handshake deal, maybe it's a let's wait and see, make sure your rehab goes all right for the next couple of months, and then we'll see where things are at. But yeah, I think he's an intriguing option, and I think it would be an upgrade over, you know, what the bottom of their depth chart looks like at cornerback.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you could come in here and say Beanie looks good. We want to give him an opportunity, but we need somebody to compete with them. And Dante Kent isn't going to be that guy, because what's worse than an undrafted guy going up against another undrafted guy, or going up against nobody, is an undrafted guy going up against a 7th round pick. I just don't think that could get any worse. And the Steelers, like, that is the one hole. The Steelers avoid slot corner like the plague. They just don't. They use them all over the place, and they constantly have a need for slot corner, and they just avoid filling it. Asante Samuel Jr. to look at. I would sign Asante to a 1-year, $2.5, $3 million deal, just to kind of juice it up and say you're 24, 25 years old, come to Pittsburgh, and, you know, maybe it makes sense, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but you're going to get an opportunity to compete with a guy that, you know, we also like. And that's the best part is, you know, Mike Hilton's name has been tossed out a number of times. My problem with Mike Hilton is the fact that he's 31 years old, and maybe Mike Hilton's better than Beanie Bishop, but maybe he's just slightly better than Beanie Bishop. And at that point, I don't know if I want to hinder the development of Beanie Bishop, a guy that you might have an opportunity to do something bigger with for a 31-year-old. Asante Samuel Jr. could be the future. You know, like, he could be the guy that's getting a 4 or 5 year deal after this season. He could be a guy that plays inside and out. I just feel like it makes so much sense for the Steelers he was not on my mind or on my radar at all in Pittsburgh. And I don't think he was on Pittsburgh's radar. I still don't know if he is on Pittsburgh's radar at all. But I do think that this makes so much sense if it works out long term, or if it works out in July, because it gives the Steelers a short-term option and then a long-term outlook with multiple options for a position that they are going to have to fill. What's your? I might have asked you this in the last couple of days, but what's your confidence level in Beanie? You have confidence in Beanie? Is he your guy? Do you want him to be the guy?
Oh, do I want him to be the guy? I mean, yeah, I love the idea of an undrafted free agent who just like stuck it out and worked his butt off and eventually became like the guy for the Steelers in whatever position that is. So I am rooting for him to continue progressing and maybe find something more permanent and have the Steelers have their full faith in him. That would make me incredibly happy. Do I think he's going to? My confidence level is low. I think we might have been talking about this yesterday, where like if they were to pivot towards like Mike Hilton, I feel the same way as you, where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm 10, 15, 20% confident in Beanie and like 20 to 30% confident in what Mike Hilton does. So like, I'm not getting this huge improvement by going after him. But contrarily, if you go after Asante Samuel Jr. and bring him in, you got somebody that I would feel way more confident in. And then, but my question, to put it back on you here, is would you be as interested if there was anything longer than a 1-year deal on the table? And is there anything in terms of money? What's the cap that you would give him? I heard you say 2.5, 3 million. Is it anything more than that? You're like, we're good. We have to go with what we got. Or is he worth that much to you?
I think corners are cheap. And I think corners always seem to be cheaper than you think that they're going to be, or they're crazy expensive. And there just seems to be no middle. Like there's never a corner signing where you're like, that was good. That was just a good, even split sign, like made sense for both sides. Either the corner got screwed or the team got screwed. It's one side or the other. I would say for the Steelers, if they find middle ground, to me, $2-3 million is low. I'd go $5 million on a 2-year deal, nothing guaranteed after the first year for Asante Samuel. I don't think he'd want to do anything longer than that because he's betting on himself to sign a bigger deal. Like, corners are going for $20 million right now. Like he would probably get somewhere around 10 to 12. And I think that's a good chunk of change compared to 5. You're doing pretty all right. So I would say I'd go 2 years. I think that would be a good spot for him and for the Steelers. I'd go $5 million a year with nothing guaranteed on the back end if that was the case. I could see, I don't know. I could see Asante Samuel as like, if you're going to take a risk on somebody, you might as well take a risk on somebody who's actually good and is shown to be good in the NFL. I think that's Asante Samuel Jr. And I like the youth, like Darius Slay was awesome. I don't know what my faith in Corey Trice is just yet. I don't know what my faith in Beanie Bishop is just yet. Asante Samuel is a good option that I think could be worth a decent amount of money. They were willing to, I'll say this, they wanted Nate Hobbs real bad out of Vegas. Gerald Alexander was pounding the table trying to get him from Vegas after he arrived, but they weren't going to pay that type of money. I believe he went for $15 million a year, something like that. Some crazy amount for a guy like Nate Hobbs. I could see Asante going cheap, and I could see the Steelers being a little aggressive if they need to be, and I'd be somewhat okay with that.
I'd be thrilled if the news came out that they signed into that contract you proposed. I think that would be a huge win for them.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's keep it trucking here. Former Baltimore Ravens defensive tackle had this to say the other day that, we've talked about this many times, and the Pittsburgh Steelers do not care what a former player has to say, but he said this one, and I think it's just funny because you could clearly look and say how wrong this is. Chris Canty, former Baltimore Ravens defensive tackle, said, quote, "Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have a legitimate starting NFL quarterback on their roster. So it got me to thinking, if Shedeur Sanders starts the majority of the games this season in Cleveland, is not drafting him the biggest mistake in the Mike Tomlin era of Steelers football?" Absolutely wild, just to start. Absolutely wild. I think it's so funny that we have latched on, that some have latched on so hard to Shedeur Sanders just being this guy that is going to change franchises, and the Steelers have missed on him so terribly. Like 31 teams, including the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round, passed on Shedeur Sanders 5 times and said, we're good, we don't want him. That's not all interviews. A lot of that is talent. A lot of that is them looking at Shedeur Sanders and saying, I just don't think he's a franchise quarterback or has what it takes to be a franchise quarterback. But we could sit here and say that all day. You want to know what I'm more interested in? Is the wild hot takes of, is this the worst move in Mike Tomlin history? Which is, Shedeur Sanders can go win 5 Super Bowls, okay? He's a 5th round pick who the entire world passed on, and I still don't think would end up being the worst decision the Steelers have ever made, okay? Ever. And I got 3 of them right off the bat that is just wildly ahead of Shedeur Sanders being passed on by the Pittsburgh Steelers for 5 rounds. You ready?
Yes.
We'll go not as bad to absolutely nuts. Just three. I just got a quick three for you. Terrell Edmonds over this guy named Jesse Bates. You want to know where Terrell Edmonds is in his career? A practice squad guy who's hoping to be on a roster. You want to know what Jesse Bates has done? Incredible things. He has made the Steelers' life hell time and time and time again. He made it hell in Atlanta when they played him last year. You wanted a safety. Mike Tomlin said clearly, he still says it to this day. In the 2017 NFL draft, we clearly wanted a safety. Yeah, why didn't you go get the good one? Why'd you? We get it. You wanted a safety. There was a better option out there. That's a wild one. Number 2 here. Second round of the, I believe, 2020 NFL draft. I'm almost positive it was 2020, COVID year, because I remember Roger Goodell sitting on his couch. The Pittsburgh Steelers in the second round select this guy named Chase Claypool, wide receiver, not in the league currently, potentially heading up to Canada, his homeland, to play football in 2025. You want to know who they didn't draft that same round, that same year? The guy that just won the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles and got named Super Bowl MVP, who plays quarterback, who would have, without a doubt, been the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but instead they chose a guy that some teams thought was a tight end. Why? Because Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert wanted this dude and his special teams ability that they saw in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. That's all they kept talking about. Oh my gosh, you should have saw this guy's effort on special teams during the Senior Bowl. Okay, that's fantastic. You should have saw Jalen Hurts lead the Philadelphia Eagles to the freaking Super Bowl for the second time. That's what you should have saw. And then number 3, to me, this one's head and shoulders above any move the Pittsburgh Steelers have ever made. And I don't think it's all on him, but man, dude, coach makes the coaching decisions most times, and there was a clear connection of how he got here. I think everybody, at least Chris Canty, forgot that the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator under Mike Tomlin was Matt freaking Canada for 3 seasons. For 3 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers let Matt Canada call plays while nobody knew what was going on, because for 3 years, the Steelers couldn't identify what their identity was. You know what their identity was? We suck because our offensive coordinator is terrible. That's what it is. I mean, there's probably a billion others. Shedeur Sanders? Come on, dude. Go get Jesse Bates, Jalen Hurts, and call anybody off the couch. Anybody, you could call me. I bet you I'd call better offense than Matt Canada. No chance. Without question. Those are just 3. I thought of those this morning. You know what I mean? Like sitting in the airport, just going, Canada's a bad one. Terrell Edmonds over Jesse Bates was pretty rough as well. And Jalen Hurts just won a Super Bowl. So I think that's worse than Shedeur Sanders. Am I wrong here?
No, you are bang on. I am honestly shocked by the sensationalist takes about this. I like Shedeur Sanders. I think he can be maybe capable. I was excited about the possibility of the Steelers taking him if they could get their hands on him, but the Steelers have had a ton of mistakes. I mean, you listed 2 draft blunders. The immediate one that popped into my head was a linebacker they selected named Jarvis Jones in the first round. And, you could just go on and on all of these decisions that, they could have gone a different way and it would have gone much better. So, yeah, I think if Shedeur Sanders is the biggest mistake that Tomlin and company have made, that should be really a ringing endorsement of what Tomlin has done, because that means that some of the other mistakes look much better by comparison, which I think you are saying we completely disagree with. I think there's been a lot of mistakes in the Tomlin era, and maybe Sanders is one of the next ones, but I don't think it's going to be the biggest one or the one that is like the nail in the coffin of Tomlin's downfall.
Yes, look it. And in the chat immediately, Devin Bush at number 10. What are we doing here? Kenny Pickett over Tyler Linderbaum. What are we doing here? Like, just the names, Najee Harris over Creed Humphreys. What are we doing here? Like, it just got shout out to Chris Canty, man, because you got me to talk about it. I bet you got a bunch of other people to talk about it in the same breath. So shout out to Chris Canty. Worst decision of all time? Not even close. Not even close. All right. let's finish this one up with well, it's Tuesday, and well, I'm very excited to say that we are back with Overreaction Tuesdays. We're diving into them. If you got a couple, toss them in the chat. We'll hit one or two or three of them when we're done here. But let's get this thing kicking.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business, and sometimes it's very subtle.
Sometimes it's very subtle. This week, Jake's got them. Jake, I'm going to toss them to you. What do we got?
All right. Well, we just talked about some draft blunders, some mistakes that might have cost the Steelers. I'm going to flip it a little bit here to go against what our friend Chris was just talking about. This 2025 draft class under Omar Khan is going to go down as the best draft class of his tenure as a GM, and could be a class that saves Tomlin's tenure as head coach of the Steelers.
Wow. Saves Mike Tomlin's tenure as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Greatest draft of all time. So that would mean, okay, so we're just going to start from the top here. That would mean Derek Harmon, Whitey Black, both studs. Caleb Johnson, absolute monster, which if I'm going to guess on any of them, it's going to be Caleb Johnson without a doubt. Jack Sawyer, man. Oh my God. Jack Sawyer that's a one where it's like, yeah, might be a miss. Will Howard would be, he'd have to become a franchise quarterback, but I think that's all that it would take is if Will Howard becomes a 6th round next Tom Brady, the Pittsburgh Steelers are just fine. If he becomes the next Brock Purdy, Steelers are just fine. Phenomenal draft class without question. Of Omar Khan's tenure so far, Joey Porter Jr.'s draft class was pretty good. Last year's draft class was pretty good. I'm gonna say that's not an overreaction. I would say right now it's too early to tell. Not an overreaction. I would say there's potential. There's a ton of potential in the front half of this draft. I think the Broderick Jones, Joey Porter, Keanu Benton, Nick Herbig, Darnell Washington draft has some serious potential to make this thing a neck and neck race. But I don't think last year's draft. Last year's draft, you might walk out of there with 3 franchise offensive linemen, which is, like, in my opinion, ridiculous. That's huge if you could possibly do that. You'd have to come up with at least 3 franchise players out of this draft to make this work and compete with those other guys, because I think Keanu Benton's here to stay. I think Joey Porter Jr. is here to stay. You're going to need one other one. Broderick Jones, potentially. Nick Herbig, potentially. I don't think Darnell Washington's here for 10 years, but you never know. I would say not an overreaction. I think there's competition, but I do think that it's too early to tell, and the other ones haven't. There's not a clear winner where we stand here right now. I would say not an overreaction.
All right, good. Not a bad start for me then. The one thing that the Steelers didn't really address in their draft class, and as we've been talking about a ton, is wide receivers. So I want to pivot a little bit here. I know we've talked a ton about GP14, and I know we don't want to talk about him way too much, but I have a crazy claim for you here.
Okay.
I think now that Pickens is gone, the door has just been swung wide open for Mr. Calvin Austin to become a permanent fixture in the Steelers offense. And my take for you is that Calvin Austin is going to rack up more receiving yards than George Pickens in the 2025 season.
Calvin Austin over George Pickens. Wow. I think the light behind me just got brighter because it was also saying, wow. That's an overreaction. Look at it. Just cards are stacked against him. I love Calvin Austin. Okay. Love Calvin Austin. Great dude. Favorite player in the locker room without question. I'll tell it to his face. I have told it to his face. I'll do it again. He doesn't have a quarterback right now. I don't even know if he's going to be wide receiver 2, but I know George Pickens is going to be wide receiver 2 in Dallas. Dak Prescott's going to be throwing him the football. CeeDee Lamb's like a 1,300 to 1,800 yard receiver pretty much every season with multiple touchdowns. The Cowboys are a flashy team, and I don't know who's playing running back for them right now, which means that the Steelers, they have like 7 running backs. They're going to run the football a lot this season. I would think that's an overreaction. I don't even think that it comes, to be honest. This is awful to say. Okay. Again, shout out my boy Calvin Austin. I don't think it surprised me if George Pickens doubles his receiving yards in 2025. I think that walks the line more than him which I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm always rooting pro Calvin Austin in this argument. I would say it's an overreaction. That's a big overreaction. I'm going to be honest.
I think that's, fair enough. Because to your point, if Calvin Austin racks up 600 yards, I don't think either of us would be shocked if Pickens has 1,200 yards.
1,200 yards is a possibility.
What I'm banking on with this statement here is that the experiment in Dallas just sort of implodes before anything can get going. And maybe just like the consistency that Calvin Austin gets by catching 35 passes just happens to outdo his counterpart in Dallas. But
would be absolutely phenomenal.
Steelers Nation would, I think, throw a party just based off of that happening alone.
Yes,
so yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
I have one other wide receiver claim for you. I think a theme that I might be developing is some Roman Wilson spite. And I don't want to keep building on it without the player even getting the chance to really show himself healthy in training camp and show why the Steelers invested a 3rd round pick in him. But I'm concerned. I'm concerned about his status on the team moving forward. And I think the emergence of everyone's favorite undrafted free agent, Rock Taylor, makes Roman Wilson a very serious camp cut casualty.
Wow. In his second year, I got to go overreaction on that one too. In his second year, Roman Wilson would have to be so atrociously bad to be cut in his second year, because that means Robert Woods is sticking around. That means Ben Skoronek's sticking around. Like, there's just nobody else that the Steelers could go, yeah, we should probably get rid of that guy before we get rid of Roman. Now, I'll say this. The Steelers are high on Roman Wilson. They're excited about what Roman Wilson brings to the table in 2025, but they were high on him in 2024, and he did nothing at all. So we have zero ground to stand on in this argument. But, I mean, dude, that's the overreaction so far, I would say. Roman Wilson's sticking around. I don't see him. He might not play, but to get rid of Roman in year 2 would be wild.
It would be a shocking decision. And the one sliver of the one sliver of logic I keep thinking about in this is that I've never seen a receiver go from like being drafted, being so excited about by the organization, to an injury, not only taking them away from the field, but then like also hearing about all of these things about his inability to like grasp the playbook and sort of some of the terminology and some of those things that have come out. Like, it's one thing that injuries take away your entire first or second year. That happens a lot and it's unfortunate. Yeah. But then to hear those things about sort of like his development as a football player, the IQ of it and stuff like that, that does concern me. So I think it would be a shocking move, but I don't know.
One you're keeping on the table. Look I don't know, man. There are still some names out there. Broderick's got a good one here. DeMarvin Leal is still on this roster. Okay. Isaiah Loudermilk has returned to this roster. Cordero Patterson. Okay. If Cordero Patterson makes it before Roman Wilson, I might retire. Overreaction Tuesday is done if that's what happens. I'll say that right now.
There's no doubting that there are lots of candidates who are going to be on the bubble here for roster cuts as we get going. Do you mind if I pivot a little bit here for my next overreaction?
Do your thing.
I think I kind of have a nice little rhythm here for some fiery takes, he said sarcastically. But this one might get you. Mike Tomlin, we're talking about him all the time.
Yes.
I think it's possible that this international game is the final international game of Mike Tomlin's coaching career with the Steelers.
Oh my gosh. The last. So he's getting fired? He's done?
Well, I want to be ambiguous here. I think that there is some hope on my side that the Steelers might just not get in an international game anytime again soon in the next decade, which might negate all of this. But I think it's possible that the way we've been kind of thinking about things, if the season is a flub, if the franchise QB process is a miss in 2026, I think the Ireland game could have been the international swan song for one of the greatest coaches in Steelers history.
Oh my God. There's only been 3 of them. There's only been 3 coaches. Look at, look at, as crazy as this sounds. Okay. Let's be honest about the situation. As crazy as this sounds, if the Pittsburgh Steelers don't go international in the next 5 years after this, and they draft a quarterback in 2026 and they miss miserably, there's potential that that's true and that that's not an overreaction. Now, is it an overreaction today? Yeah. Mike Tomlin's not losing his job at where we stand today. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to force him out. Will Howard's not going to force him out. Rookie quarterback next year might bat another swing and a miss at the quarterback position. It might be the end of Mike Tomlin. Like, we might be hitting that point where Mike Tomlin's got to get a quarterback right. He's got to do it. And the Steelers are putting a lot of pressure on next season to make it happen. As crazy as this sounds, I don't think this is an overreaction. I think it's an overreaction where we stand today. I think it walks the line of potentially not being an overreaction. And I will say that I have a lot of faith the Steelers are going to swing and hit on a quarterback next year, and it's going to work out in their favor. And they're spending 2 full years to scout and pick and choose and hand pick the guy they want to draft. But if it goes awry, if it's a bad one, maybe, just maybe. I'm going to say overreaction, but you're walking the line of not. And it's dangerously, wildly close to not being an overreaction.
We're in some dangerous territory here. Okay, let me pivot here one more time to someone who I think will be around for the entirety of their NFL career in Pittsburgh, and that is edge rusher TJ Watt. I think I've said a couple of times on here, I know you have too, I think the Steelers are going to get a deal done with him, and they'll get an extension done within the next few months, and I think it's going to be a ridiculous one. I think that the guaranteed money that TJ Watt will sign for his next extension will be at least $130 million, if not greater, which would be at least $7 or so million more than the guaranteed money Cleveland Browns star Myles Garrett signed for with his recent extension.
Yikes, $130 million. TJ's last contract, I believe, had $70 million.
Yeah, 70 or 80, somewhere in there.
Right in that range, and that was the most ever by a mile the Steelers have ever given up. $130 million guaranteed. I love you, TJ, man. You're a great player, one hell of a teammate, fantastic leader for the Pittsburgh Steelers. No chance. No chance. No. Look at this. Look at this. No chance. No chance. I would say the most they're going to give him is $100 million guaranteed. I think that sounds fantastic. I'm not somebody who has the potential to make $130 million guaranteed at 30 years old, just because I signed it pen to paper on something. I mean, I don't know. I got 6 months. Maybe something crazy will happen, but I don't know. To me, $100 million is pretty good money. I think $100 million is $130 million is, I would say they're going to sign him to a deal that year by year outpaces Myles Garrett. But I don't think that he's going to get the guaranteed money Myles is going to get. I'm going to go overreaction on that one. And that sucks to say because I think TJ is worth $150 million guaranteed. Give him all the money in the world. Yeah. That dude is an absolute stud. I don't think he's going to get it. I think that's a problem with NFL contracts is everybody just looks at the annual. How much do you make in total and per year? And TJ's money is going to look better per year and total than Myles Garrett, but I do not think that the guarantee will match up. I'm going to go overreaction with the final one there.
All right. Those are my 5 for you, buddy.
All right, we got a couple in the chat here. We'll keep them trucking. Adam Lowe, no, overreaction. Rodgers signing and acquiring Chris Olave or Keenan Allen puts us back into the possibility of Super Bowl contention. Jake? Overreaction?
Chris Olave, not an overreaction at all. I think if they were to sign Rodgers and bring in Olave, that would bring them back to contender-ish, pretty right along that line. And I think if they played well to start, then you fully put them in that contender status. But yeah, bringing in a quarterback that you have faith in and someone like Olave who's young and can grow with the rest of the offense, that's a big step.
That's a big step. I would say, I don't know if it makes them Super Bowl contenders, but the Steelers are in a much better spot than they are today. I'm already like anticipating the Steelers. I act and move as if Rodgers is already here, kind of. And yeah. I kind of feel as if this improves this Chris Olave over Keenan Allen, I would say, right? But
yeah, if it's Keenan Allen that comes in, he does not a ton for me. And maybe that's just me who feels that way, but I just think like he's not, we don't need two like playmaking wide receivers, in my opinion, on the outside. I think I would rather have someone. Yeah, I think Olave is just a better fit.
A better bit. All right, we got one more here from Pittsburgh Hornets. Overreaction. AI screwed over George Pickens. Also, thanks to all the moms for Mother's Day. Shout out to our boy Pittsburgh freaking Hornets. Fantastic. Also, a complete overreaction as we stand here today, without question. All right. That's Overreaction Tuesday. Thank you, guys. Jake, fantastic. Thank you. With that said, we're going to start diving into all your questions to end the show. Toss them in the chat. We'll get to them right after this.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Yeah, alrighty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. If you got questions, toss them in the chat. We're going to start here with a couple, but first I want to address a PSA real quick. Maddie's got one. If I call tonight for the call-in show, will it make it in time for tomorrow? So I'm going to be very honest with you guys, okay? Call-in show is usually prepped and recorded at about 9 a.m. on Wednesday. I'm in New York. I have a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. that I thought was right here when I was scheduled. It said the Soho office. So I said, all right, cool. I'll book a hotel in Soho. Office is not in Soho. So we're going to get out of here a little bit early. One of two things is either going to happen. I'm either going to record super late tonight to try to make sure that I get everybody's, or I'm going to record super, super early tomorrow morning. I would imagine it's super late tonight. Either way, it probably won't happen until about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So if you get your calls in before then, awesome. If not, I promise you guys that I will make up for it, whether I do a second call-in show if there's too many, or we hold them for next week, one way or another, but I will make up for it. But I hope that answers all of your questions. Should, we're in that part of the offseason where a lot of things are shifting and moving, and it's flowing. It's flowing. All right. Chris, trading Pickens was hard, but his continued bad behavior on social media proved it was the right move. This is all about rebuilding the right culture. Do you think that when you look at George Pickens as possibly the final straw for the Pittsburgh Steelers to say we have to redo this thing and figure it out the right way, is it the right move? Can you go culture over talent in the NFL and pull it off?
Yes, I think hypothetically you can. I think there's the reason for that is because there's not one true way in my mind to build a championship team. So yeah, I think the right team and the right makeup and all of those things can be just as effective as the most talented team that's ever been assembled. So yeah, I'm all for one collective goal with the roster construction, with the personnel within the roster. I just my biggest question right now is like with this Aaron Rodgers stuff, I have a really hard time reconciling this like step towards the right culture but also maybe bringing in a person who has brought just as much sort of like social media shenanigans and buzz and stuff like that someone like Pickens has done. So I'm not sure like if that is actually what the Steelers' mindset and mantra going forward is. I think they want to like clear out some pieces that they found to be too much of a distraction like Pickens was, but I'm not sure if they're just like fully in on like culture, personnel has to be this way. Otherwise it's not going to work. I don't think we're there yet.
I agree. I don't think this is I think they've done the pieces. You know what I mean? Kenny Pickett doesn't want to be here. All right, great, dude. You're not that good anyways. See you later. Sounds good. Najee Harris, a little bit of a distraction. Sounds good. We're just going to kind of let you walk. Chase Claypool was a big one. Deontay Johnson was a big one. George Pickens is the biggest. George Pickens is a guy that the Steelers looked at and just said, look at dude, everything else we've done over the last couple of years has set us up to be in a pretty good spot where we are prepared for now and the future, which I think is a weird line to walk. I've said that multiple times, but they're at a place where they feel pretty confident. I'm not saying I feel confident. They feel confident in where they are. The last thing they want to do is bring in a quarterback next year or this year with Will Howard and have him answering questions about why George Pickens is talking crap on him on social media. Why is do you care that George Pickens is liking comments about how you aren't a good quarterback and then denying those comments? Like, they don't want those things. So I think that some instances you have to do this. I also think that it comes down to talent, and George is phenomenal, but Tyreek Hill, Antonio Brown, they've earned their places to cause drama. AB did it significantly worse than anybody else, which is why he didn't last. But there are reasons that you deal with this stuff and why you didn't deal with it with George Pickens. The Mikado 16. If we grab Keenan Allen when Rodgers signs, everyone going to be singing a different tune. We answered this. Let's answer it again. Keenan Allen, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, the whole nine. Super Bowl contending team in the AFC.
No, but a better team than right now. I'm not a Keenan Allen hater. I just really don't like this fit with the Steelers. I just don't think he's like going to attract enough receptions here. I don't think he would be the right fit for what the Steelers are trying to do offensively. I think they'd be better. You have more talent, more options for Rodgers, Rudolph, whoever to throw it to. But yeah, I'm not a contender with Keenan Allen.
I somewhat agree. Like, I think Keenan Allen's an upgrade. Mm-hmm. I also think Keenan Allen is inconsistent when it comes to how many games he's going to play per season, if he could be reliable for a full 17 slate. This is bad to say, but he kind of gives me like at some point he might become Mike Williams vibes, where it's like phenomenal wide receiver, but maybe hit that. And don't get me wrong, Keenan Allen's way better than Mike Williams, but eventually hits that wall that you're looking for. I think it's a different tune. Are they like, I'll be honest, I think they beat teams I think they have a chance of beating teams like Baltimore because they have the rivalry edge against Baltimore. I think they could beat Cincinnati, who's an absolute train wreck right now. I think you'd beat Houston. I think you'd have a shot to beat, and this is if Rodgers is good. I think the Rodgers question is bigger than the Keenan Allen. I think you'd beat Cleveland. I think you'd beat, I don't even know who else would the Jets. Who else is maybe even going to make the play? Oh, the Broncos. I think you'd beat the Broncos. I think you'd beat the Chargers, and I think you'd beat the Raiders. I think you'd have a shot to beat those. I don't know if Keenan Allen's going to get you over the hump of Buffalo and Kansas City, though.
For sure.
Chris has another one here. Guys, since we have cap space this year, should we sign Watt to a huge front-loaded contract this season? If we front-load it, he will be cheaper later. I would imagine the Steelers kind of walk that line where TJ's contract is going to hit significantly more for the first 4 years than it is the last one. Like the Steelers are in a place where they don't really have to allocate money one way or another because they have signings coming, but they don't have a quarterback signing coming. And because of that, they can kind of spend money everywhere and say, TJ, you want a massive contract? Fantastic. Joey Porter Jr., you're going to get another contract next year. Awesome. Well, Alex Highsmith at some point, most likely. Awesome. Deshaun Elliott's going to need another contract after the end of the season. Awesome. At some point, you're going to have to start re-signing these offensive linemen in a couple of years. Great. And then it's a quarterback. And then you're going, okay, now it's good. But I think the Steelers are at a place where TJ's contract this year will be cheaper because, or it will come with a hefty signing bonus to make his cap hit cheaper. Then next year, it'll be a big hit. The year after that, it'll be a bigger hit. The third year will be a big, big hit. And then if it's a fourth year, it'll probably drop off in that fourth year, just to kind of see where he's at. But at that point, you're 34, pushing 35 years old. Like, I don't know how much you got left. Do you expect something different?
No, I think that's a great idea from Chris and from you. I think they should try to get as much money into it immediately, and see how that works out for him. So yeah, that's what I'm expecting as well.
Yeah. Stephen Cornfield here. Noah, why does New York City sound like your Florida trip? I hope that doesn't mean the microphone. Do I sound good? We sound crystal clear. No echo. So. Okay. All right, cool. When it comes to the shopping side of things, every time I go places, man, everybody just wants me to spend money. And I'm a sucker for spending money. My problem is I spend money on the stupid things. You know what I mean? Like I buy all of my clothes. My mother-in-law was shook. If my father-in-law is watching this right now, my mother-in-law was shook when I told her that I almost exclusively shop at Walmart and Target for my clothes. Exclusively. Pants I'm wearing right now, khakis, Walmart. This, Target. The shoes, I buy shoes, but that's it. Everything down to the boxers, Walmart. It's the best place to go. But I will spend $200 on a backpack because, and the justification for it was, well, I got to look good if I'm walking around and I don't want this big giant backpack that makes me look like I'm 12, but I'll wear the Walmart t-shirt because that makes me look good all the time. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a good time.
Work hard.
Shout out to my wife, man. She's the best. Marlon Lewis, did Chris Sims' below average arm comments slow down the Will Howard hype train? I hope not, man. I like Chris Sims. I think he's very good at what he does. I think Will Howard is a below average quarterback right now. I thought he was a below average quarterback coming into the NFL. I compared Will Howard to Mason Rudolph this entire time. That's been that's been it. If Will Howard becomes the next Mason Rudolph, that's a great place to be. But I don't know. I don't look at Will Howard as a franchise quarterback. I hope he can develop into one. But Chris Sims, to me, didn't slow it down. I hope to everybody else it didn't slow it down. And to be honest, I hope people are still rooting for him because he's a good kid. And I think if you could turn it around and turn it into something awesome, you know what I mean? Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. And then he just came out of the woodworks. And I think I always want that door to be open for a guy who earns it and deserves it, and that's Will Howard. Did it change anything for you?
No. I think what will inevitably, most likely, slow down the hype train for Will Howard is once we actually see him in a preseason game and in training camp and things like that. Right now, it is just way too fresh and new, and there's so little to actually see of him on the field other than, these clips and these interviews and how he's doing these walkthroughs effectively and things like that. I'm not going to be let down or maybe start to doubt what he could do until I see him in preseason. And then once that happens, then, that Mason Rudolph comparison will probably feel a lot more apt. We'll start to maybe temper expectations a little bit. The hype train slows down. But, for the next 2 months, full speed ahead.
Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead. Shout out to Macaroni Salad for gifting an All Steelers Talk membership. Shout out. If you snag that, call into the call-in show. And we'll make sure I answer that question. And shout out to Carl Spackler, member for 3 months. It's wild to think that we've had memberships for 3 months. Shout out to Carl Spackler, my friend. Shout out to Carl Spackler. Miguel got my wish, and GP is out the door. So all I have to say is great show and welcome to Jacob. Jacob, we got another one here. I wanted to highlight earlier that I may. Will Jacob be updating his area? Maybe some Steelers stuff in the background. Welcome to the AST show. Now make yourself at home. And I think there was one more in here somewhere. I could be totally wrong, but you got a big shout out for the Mac Miller posters. So
thank
awesome.
you. Yep. Mac Miller is the GOAT. Obviously, very important to my wife and I as well. So yeah, he's a very important person in our lives. But yeah, I'm trying to find that right like mix for the background. I'm trying to get things set up in my office the right way. So it's gonna shift around a bunch. I'll probably see some more of my record collection coming into it. But for now, my boy Max out here keeping me company.
We're a good time. That's part of the gig here is just finding. I've shifted my office in my studio 400 times. So it's a good time. It's a good time. Mike Lang, would y'all blow it up and trade TJ and Minka? No, I would trade Minka, but not TJ. I don't think I've ever asked you, would you trade? What's your thoughts on Minka and a potential possible, would you ever consider trading him?
I love Minka Fitzpatrick. I think he is in some ways a victim of the whole Troy Polamalu left in this organization, where the expectation once we acquired him was that he would be the same sort of player, just 10 years later. And that was just, I don't think that ever was going to happen. That all being said, me voicing my support for Minka, I think we are getting to a time where it makes a ton of sense to move on from him. Not right now. I'm not saying like my answer to Mike's question is I wouldn't blow it up and trade them right now, but
yeah.
I'm thinking in the back of my head, like we have this A plan. We're moving towards 2026 while trying to stay competitive, but like the steps we're taking are leaving this possibility that we just become a very bad franchise for a little bit. So if that happens, I think a fail safe or an option that could maybe help change the direction would be to move on from Minka. I think you would bring back solid assets. You're getting rid of a really hefty contract as well.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense for him to become a trade candidate. I'm not there right now. I'm not arguing to trade Minka at this moment, but I'm not against it in theory.
Okay. I'm not either. I like Minka. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think the Steelers are in a place where if you're going to offload anybody right now, if you're going to get rid of that big contract, Minka's the one you're getting rid of. It just makes too much sense to say Minka's phenomenal. Great. I think he's got so much left in the tank and could be great once again. I love your Troy Polamalu take there, but I just think if you're going to trade anybody for assets, now is the time to trade Minka. And I think it works out. TJ would take so much for me to. He's a one helmet guy in my head and will always be.
Agreed.
Heath Miles, great show. Appreciate you as always. Appreciate all you guys today. It is a phenomenal show. It is a phenomenal show. Maddie, can you give a quick overview of your thoughts on Will Howard? Do you think he could become the guy? What are some cons in his game? What are some things he does well? How can he get better? I don't know if I got time to do a complete overview of Will Howard, but what I will say is this. I do think Will Howard has the mental aspect of it, the football IQ and the leadership to become a guy in the NFL. I think his tangibles, which is his arm strength, his anticipation, his ability to throw on the run, his mobility, all of that is not up to a place where he's Shedeur. He's Shedeur Sanders, where you're looking at him going, what is the thing? What is the it? Where does it come from? He doesn't have it. He doesn't have an it. So you have to either find it in the NFL or you don't have it and you never get it. And that's how you become a Mason Rudolph. That's how you become a long-term backup in the NFL, is to be really good at the other stuff and to be just good enough at the tangible physical stuff. And I think that's where I am. Will Howard is like, can he find the it factor? Definitely. Does he have it coming into the NFL? No, he doesn't. There's no part of his game where you look at it and go, that dude is unreal in this area. He had 2.5 really good games in the college football play. I think he played terrible against Penn State, but 2.5 really good games in the college football playoff where you started to see high, unreal anticipation throws and just being able to read the defense. Right now, I don't think he's got that. And that's his con that's pulling his back. There's no it. I think he could find an it, but he's got to find it. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I think I'm a little higher on Howard in general than maybe you are. But yeah, the thing that sticks out for me that needs to improve is the anticipation. Like he's just not. I think the offensive line that he's coming into is ideal for someone who doesn't have that as a huge strength right now, because they are going to hopefully be a very good offensive line. But yeah, he needs to be able to pick up on things a little bit quicker. He needs to be able to distribute the ball a little bit more effectively in tough situations. I'm not super sold on his ability to do that at the NFL level just yet. But when a player is able to win at college and has the ability to just come in and sort of feel seamless as an NFL player, I have hope. So, I don't think I'm not 100% on him becoming a franchise player or anything like that yet. But I do think that there is some upside there that we can tap into.
All right, so let's add to this one. Irresistible fan. I know. Welcome, Jacob. I have this feeling that Howard is going to be the next NFL surprise star and the Steelers' next Super Bowl quarterback. Am I insane to hope Rodgers doesn't come and Howard gets a shot? You're higher on Howard than I am. I think Mason would be the guy, but would you mind Howard getting a shot over Aaron Rodgers this season?
I would mind if he was just given the opportunity as a starting quarterback over Mason without having shown that he's the better player in the preseason. I don't think it's insane to hope Rodgers doesn't come. I am totally fine with the point of view that you just want to see if Mason can do it, or you just want to see if Howard can do it. But I think if you're just going to give someone else the starting job that isn't Aaron Rodgers, it has to be Mason Rudolph at first. And then if he struggles, the Steelers are bad, then boom, you got this guy that you've been high on for the past couple of months that can come in and maybe do better. But yeah, I don't think it's insane to want that. I am just not 100% there with you on him becoming the next star franchise quarterback for the Steelers. I'd love it, but I'm not sure.
I would love it. Mike Lang here. Is this team a quarterback away? Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels and look different. What does this team need? The team this year is not exciting. I think the Steelers are a very exciting team in the very boring areas. Their defensive front is really good right now. Their offensive line is young and has the pieces, and it gets me super fired up. They have good tight ends. Their secondary is in pretty decent shape where we sit here today. They're inside linebackers, they're outside linebackers. The core's there. Is it going to work out? Who knows? It's the quarterback position. The running back position, I think, is great. Mm-hmm. And the wide receivers, they don't look that good. And I think those are the flashy ones that make them boring. So I hear what you're saying. I think the offensive line needs to work. The defensive line needs to work. And then I think they're a quarterback away. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, most teams are probably just a quarterback away. Like, I don't think anyone before last year, before the Commanders took Jaden Daniels, were like, the only thing that's missing is like a D lineman that can get in and play as nose tackle or something like that. And what I mean by that is a good quarterback can come in and just cover up any blemishes on a bad roster because they just elevates everyone else around him. The Commanders are still not like the best team in the NFC by any stretch of the imagination, but they have a quarterback who can win them any game despite that. So, I mean, by that standard, by that sort of line of logic, yeah, the Steelers are pretty much a quarterback away, because if they had someone who could just be that playmaking QB that leads them in all regards, it wouldn't really matter if it was DK Keenan Allen on the outside or DK and Bobby Trees on the outside, because you just have that guy leading the way. I think if there's one other position besides quarterback that they really, really need, I would love to see them get like a stud offensive guard to pair next to Frazier. Just because Siamalu, I love him, but I just want to have that like full eye towards the future, young anchors across all five positions.
I don't mind that. I really don't. I like Siamalu. I think he's really good, but I think he's still really good. Yes. But I also understand like the four other pieces are hopefully there. I'll tell you this: if Broderick Jones doesn't work out a tackle, boom to guard. See if he works there. I think you give him a year there and you see what happens, because I think he could be good at guard. I do. I think he's athletic enough to actually make that work. But I agree with you. Cody Silva here. If we don't have a top 5 defense this year, can we be mad? Need to switch things up and start blitzing with corners. I forgot how vanilla the defense was. I think the Steelers have the talent to be a top 5 defense this year for sure. I think they had the talent last year and it just didn't work out though. I think the Steelers have 0 missing pieces right now that are like very alarming missing pieces. They need a slot corner, but you're putting faith in Beanie Bishop, who looked pretty okay last year. So I understand where that's coming from. But that would be my one. My outside of that, I think the Steelers I think they have all the talent to be a top 5 defense. They just got to play like it.
For sure. Yeah. And we talked about, was it yesterday, about like sort of the turnover potential that this defense has. So I think that could sort of catapult them into being a top 5 defense. I am curious if there's something specific about the cornerback blitz that presents a different, approach for the Steelers defense that they're missing this year. I don't really think they have the players to be doing things like that right now. I don't think Joey Porter Jr. would look good at all coming off of the blitz in that regard. I don't think
Beanie Bishop isn't
really
that guy.
That.
No,
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. I wish
like
they
aggressive.
did though. You want to know the last time I remember the Steelers successfully blitzing the quarterback from the cornerback, or the quarterback from the slot corner position, and it didn't work? Patrick Peterson in the playoff game against the Buffalo Bills came in like a rocket and hit Josh Allen and just fell to the ground. And I went, dude, retire. What are you doing, bro? You can't be on the field. It was the easiest tackle of all time. What are you doing? I do. I think that they do need the pieces. I don't know if they have the pieces where we stand right now, but I do think that the defense as a whole, it like on paper is right there. Nate Moore, Noah, if you were on Love Island with the Steelers 2025 rookie class, who would you choose to vote off the island? Oh, that's a good question. Eliminate 7th round picks. So Carson Bruner and Deontay Kent don't count because they're 7th round picks. Who are you getting rid of? I got my answer.
I would bet your answer is Jack Sawyer, and I think that's probably mine too.
It is. It's just the only one that just doesn't make sense. I think he's good. I think he's fine. I think he fits exactly like the meme of Derrick Henry just running past everybody in Baltimore is the reason the Steelers drafted Jack Sawyer. But I didn't get that one. It was the only one that I didn't understand. I would go Jack Sawyer. Yeah. Lindsay, when will TJ's contract be done? What is the wait for? It will happen. Aaron Rodgers has got to happen first. They are negotiating it. I know that. I would imagine it happens in July. That's when I'm guessing that TJ signs his deal. Is just about the right before training camp. TJ gets a deal done is my prediction. It's just a guess. It's not big headline drama. It's just the fact that they have to negotiate and there's a process to this and it's a lot of money, and the Cleveland Browns will throw that money all over the place and just dig themselves a deeper hole. The Steelers have been pretty good with never doing that, and that's what they're trying to avoid here. All right, got 2 more here. To be decided enigma. Noah, you can reverse one situation from the Killer B area. Le'Veon gets paid, AB lays out perfect, or Big Ben mentors Mason Rudolph. What do you choose? Go ahead. I'll let you do this one.
I would have loved to have seen AB lay out perfect. That it's hard for me to not pick that one because in terms of just real life consequences, there's no doubting that this was just like a crazy moment for Antonio Brown's life. And so it's hard for me to not want to change that one. If I could go back in time and just push him out of the way a little bit, I would do that happily. I don't think Ben mentoring Mason would have done a thing. I think it would have been nice. I don't think he never had to do that. No obligation to do that. I would have liked to have seen Le'Veon get paid, but it's not like he went off and then was just the best running back in football once he left. I just think he was. I'm going to pick AB.
I'm going to pick AB. All right, I like that. I got a curveball, but out of those 3, I think I'd go Le'Veon. I think if Le'Veon never sat out a year, the Steelers are in a good spot, and they didn't want to pay him. They were right there to pay him. And I would, if he missed games, different story. But if you paid him before he ever sat out, I think I would have went that one. I'd go this though. The Steelers draft Jalen Hurts instead of Chase Claypool, and they tell Ben, shut up, you're mentoring Jalen Hurts. And that's my answer on that one. I don't think Mason turns it, but I think Le'Veon maybe is fantastic. And then we'll finish it off with this one. Carl Spackler. Noah, you wake up tomorrow and see a headline. You have to pick one. Steelers re-sign Gunnar Olszewski. Steelers sign Desmond Ridder, or Darnell Washington ruled out for the season. I know mine. Do you know yours?
Oh, man.
Got to pick one.
I got to pick one. Oh, gosh. And I hate all of these. I'm picking Desmond Ridder, and
Okay.
I'm just like, it's a nightmare. It's a fever dream. Maybe one day I'll wake up from that too. Yep. I'm going Desmond Ridder.
Maybe they cut Skylar Thompson in the process, and it's just,
sure.
It's just the same thing. It's just the same
Yeah.
thing. I'm going the Steelers re-sign Gunnar Olszewski, and I'll tell you why. For one, because when that guy was at OTAs and minicamp, he was the greatest wide receiver I've ever seen in my life. And I would like to hype up Gunnar Olszewski again. I thought he was a good dude. I thought he was a very, very nice human being. You know what I'm saying? And two, he was just such a big brother, older, negative influence on so many guys. He was the guy that was like tossing you a can of chew after the game as everybody's celebrating, not me, but like other receivers and other players. And they're going, I've never done this. He's like, just toss one in, brother. Just see what happens. And then the next day you're talking to that wide receiver and you're like, yeah, how'd it go? And you're like, I threw up all night. I threw all night long. I had the spins. That's, I think it was hilarious. So I'd go Gunner. Shout out Gunner. Hope he's doing well. Doesn't touch the field, but resigns, is just here. Desmond Ridder, man, that one would be rough. All right. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Please, please, please go hit those audio downloads on Apple and Spotify and give us those 5-star reviews. Can't thank you guys enough for that. We're slowly moving up the list. And as always, you can find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.